A 14-year-old girl is facing a murder charge. It's after allegedly killing her own grandmother.
She wound up beating her grandmother to death. Essentially, her grandma was bludgeoned to death.
Sophia Koval from Lauderdale Lakes, Florida, May 23, 2024. A crime so brutal, it shook the entire state. A 16-year-old girl accused of beating her 79-year-old grandmother to death with her bare hands. One of the youngest in Florida's history to face adult charges for killing a family member. And the words she spoke afterward chilled investigators to the core. She was already dying. I just helped her die. But what followed made this case even more disturbing. Inside the courtroom, Sophia sat praying with her eyes wide open, lips moving in complete silence, as if any force, heaven, angels, God, could pull her out of what she knew was coming. Her lawyers pushed a powerful story, a war refugee drowning in trauma, a child shaped by bombings, fear, and separation. They argued she didn't fully understand her actions, that she was simply acting out, not intending real harm. And for a moment, it seemed to be working. The judge listened, the courtroom softened, but then everything changed. The prosecution presented the autopsy photos, the confession recordings, and the timeline showing Sophia had been alone with her grandmother for hours. They showed the reality of what happened inside that small Lauderdale Lakes apartment, a reality far darker and far more violent than her defense expected. This was the moment when the traumatized child narrative collided with the brutality of her actions, the moment Sophia herself realized that fleeing war in Ukraine couldn't erase what she did in America. Investigators also uncovered something else, her behavior immediately after the killing, something that completely contradicted her defense's claims about her mental state. This is the chilling case of a teenage immigrant whose rage turned deadly. And before we uncover every detail, make sure to subscribe to She Knows Crime for new true crime stories every week. Lauderdale Lakes, Florida. Just after midnight on May 23, 2024, Vladimir Koval returned to his apartment on Northwest 41st Street after visiting a friend. His mother was supposed to be watching his daughter, but instead of a quiet home, he walked straight into a nightmare. His mother, Yevhenia Koval, was lying on the living room floor, completely still. Blood had pooled around her gray hair. Her face was covered in deep bruises, and sitting just a few feet away from her grandmother's body was 14-year-old Sophia Koval, silent, staring, and waiting.
Is your daughter in the living room when you come home, or where?
No, she was in the bedroom.
In the bedroom.
Our bedroom. Screaming. And yeah.
Like yelling, or what was?
Something blubbering, some like a little crying, kind of like, but not like not really yelling.
Okay, so not loud, just kind of making
loud, just making noise, make it cry.
And
I see grandma I couldn't recognize, so I asked Sophia, come here, what happened?
You said she was laying same way we found her?
Same as you found it.
She was laying face up on the ground?
All bruised.
Okay. And before that, she had no bruises on her at all?
She wasn't bruised at all.
And so so your daughter says that she had a pet, sorry. I'll try to make you go through this again. But your daughter said that your mom attacked her or hit her or something like that, or?
I said, what happened? Why you did it? What you did to grandma? She encouraged me. I defend myself. Sophia doesn't look, it's defensive.
Right.
She handicapped, she's laying down. How it could be real time to defend her.
And I looked at your daughter. Did you see any marks on your daughter at all?
I didn't see it at all.
Okay. Did she say, like, point to any place that she was scratched at all? Or did
no, she didn't show me anything. She said she was scratched, but no, I think she just pay back. I think it's more aggravation over me, and that I have no ability to bring her home, because it's a difficult topic. I need a mom, I want a mom. I said, Sophia, you understand? It's not me to decide.
Right.
We have to have a talk. So I couldn't control that. And then she goes, like, explode and scream, Mom. It was the night before.
So now she said she hit her with a belt. Is that what she said she hit her with? The belt that was there?
Yeah, the belt.
Did she say she used anything else though?
No, she didn't tell me.
Vladimir's mind simply couldn't process what he was seeing. 3 generations had lived in this small Lauderdale Lakes apartment without trouble. His mother had survived a world war, the collapse of the Soviet Union. She had escaped decades of uncertainty looking for stability in America. And now she was lying dead on the living room floor, her hair soaked in blood. It didn't feel real. When he finally managed to speak, his voice cracked. He asked Sophia what happened. Her answer came out fast, firm, and disturbingly calm. "Grandma attacked me. I defended myself." That line would become the center of the entire case, and it was the first sign that something about her story didn't match what lay on the floor. Despite the brutal scene, Sophia didn't scream or cry. She didn't try to stop the bleeding or call for help. She sat silently beside her grandmother's body, her clothes wrinkled, her expression empty. Vladimir grabbed his phone and dialed 911 at 12:26 a.m. Paramedics arrived quickly and rushed Yevhenia to Broward Health Medical Center, but the damage was too severe. She was declared dead as soon as she arrived. Under Florida law, Sophia was immediately Baker-acted and taken for a mental health evaluation. For 72 hours, doctors observed her behavior. But when those 72 hours ended, they arrested the 14-year-old for murder. Officers wrote in their reports that Sophia showed almost no emotional reaction during the arrest. No tears, no fear, no confusion. One deputy noted, "Subject appeared blank, almost disconnected from reality." Within days, the autopsy revealed what really happened. The medical examiner ruled the cause of death as blunt force trauma to the skull, combined with extensive bruising and clear signs of strangulation. There were deep marks around her neck, consistent with being choked with a belt. Her arms were covered with defensive wounds, showing she had tried to block the blows. The belt with the metal buckle was stained with blood. Pieces of her walker, shattered during the attack, were found scattered across the room. Nothing about the injuries suggested a sudden fight or an elderly woman attacking first. It was clearly a prolonged beating. Detectives began piecing together the timeline. Vladimir had taken Sophia's phone earlier that morning as punishment. She had become increasingly hostile in recent weeks, talking back, ignoring chores, getting aggressive when she didn't get her way. When Vladimir left the apartment around 8 p.m. to visit a friend, Sophia was alone with her grandmother. By the time he returned just after midnight, everything had changed. With no cameras inside the apartment and no witnesses, investigators relied entirely on physical evidence and Sophia's shifting statements. At first, she told detectives that her grandmother scratched her, and she reacted in self-defense. Hours later, the story shifted again. She claimed her grandmother was already dying, and she only helped her. For an 80-year-old woman who had survived war, cancer, and decades of hardship, it was a shocking claim, and it didn't line up with the autopsy at all. But investigators noticed something else, something even more troubling. During 3 hours of questioning, Sophia never once asked if her grandmother was still alive. She didn't ask whether she could see her father. She didn't show remorse or panic. Her answers stayed flat, distant, like she was disconnected from the entire situation. To understand how something like this could happen, detectives had to look backward, far beyond the events of that single night. They began tracing the family's history. They learned that Yevhenia had been born in 1944 in Nazi-occupied France, during a time when Europe was falling apart. She was a baby when Allied forces liberated Paris. After the war, her family returned to Soviet-controlled Ukraine, where she grew up during Stalin's reign. She survived food shortages, political oppression, and the long tension of the Cold War. She spent her life teaching children, building a career even as her country struggled around her. Then came the cancer diagnosis. Even then, she kept working, kept pushing, kept caring for her family. When the Soviet Union finally collapsed, Yevhenia believed the darkest years were behind her. In her 70s, she immigrated to the United States to live with her son Vladimir, hoping for some peace in her final years. She never expected that the danger she had escaped for decades would find her inside her own home. Sophia Koval was born in Ukraine in 2010. For her first 12 years, life was relatively normal. She had both parents, a home, and a familiar routine. But in February 2022, Russia invaded. Bombs fell. Air raid sirens became part of daily life, and fear was constant. Sophia and her mother fled west, while her father, Vladimir, stayed behind to help evacuate others. Later, the family reunited briefly in Poland, but Sophia's mother couldn't secure a U.S. visa and had to remain in England. Vladimir and Sophia moved to Florida, arriving in Lauderdale Lakes in 2023 to live with her grandmother Yevhenia, 2 generations of war survivors under one roof. At first, the move seemed promising. No sirens, no hiding in basements. America offered safety and stability, but Sophia struggled to adjust. Middle school was difficult. Language barriers and cultural differences left her isolated. She had no friends and often seemed withdrawn. At home, tensions grew. Vladimir worked long hours, leaving Yevhenia to spend most of her time with Sophia. The teen began to resent her grandmother. Yevhenia would ask Sophia to do chores or follow household rules, which Sophia refused. Arguments flared quickly but ended just as fast. To Yevhenia, it was discipline, firm but caring, the same way she had raised Vladimir. To Sophia, it felt like control, another form of war she couldn't escape. The stress built silently, and Sophia's frustration sometimes erupted in small episodes. These moments hinted at the growing tension between the two generations, a clash of cultures, past traumas, and adolescence, setting the stage for the tragic events that would follow in Lauderdale Lakes.
I have an argument with her.
You have an argument with Sophia?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, this is
The most recent one. Okay.
Recently, before that, and she basically holding for the office chair role, and she fell on her hip.
Oh, it was like one of these chairs rolled out from her?
Yeah.
Okay.
So she lost the balance, she fell on her hip, and she had it.
But what nobody knew yet was how deep Sophia's anger had grown, how isolated she felt, and how the separation from her mother was destroying her mentally. At school, the bullying intensified. Sophia stopped turning in assignments. Her grades collapsed. She stopped talking to classmates entirely, retreating further into herself. The family hoped it was just a phase, a temporary reaction to upheaval, but they couldn't afford therapy or professional help. Immigrant wages barely covered rent and food. Sophia grew quieter, more withdrawn, almost invisible in her own home. The only time she showed emotion was when someone tried to take her phone. That phone was her lifeline, her connection to her mother in Europe, her escape from a life she never chose, the only thing that made her feel connected to someone who could understand her. And on May 23, 2024, her father took it away. Investigators later discovered this detail, which would prove crucial. Vladimir had confiscated Sophia's phone that morning before leaving for his friend's house. Sophia was furious. She'd already been fighting with Yevhenia for weeks, the tension constant and escalating. Sometime between 8 p.m. and midnight, the argument erupted. According to the medical examiner's report, Sophia grabbed a belt first and swung it at Yevhenia's head. Yevhenia tried to defend herself, the bruises on her arms showing she raised them to protect her face. But Sophia didn't stop. She picked up her grandmother's walker and struck her repeatedly. When Yevhenia fell, Sophia used the belt again. The strangulation marks told the story. Yevhenia fought for several minutes before losing consciousness. After the attack, Sophia sat down and waited for her father to come home. For 4 hours, she remained in that apartment with her dying grandmother on the floor. When Vladimir walked in just after midnight, Sophia was calm, almost serene. That chilling detail became the prosecution's most powerful weapon. By September 2024, Sophia Koval was in court facing first-degree murder charges. The prosecution sought to try her as an adult. If convicted, she would face life in prison. The courtroom was packed. Media outlets covered every hearing, and the case divided the community. Some saw a troubled child who needed help. Others saw a cold-blooded killer who beat her own grandmother to death. The defense filed a motion to transfer the case to juvenile court. Their argument was straightforward. Sophia was only 14, her brain was still developing, and trauma from war and family separation had damaged her ability to process emotions. Psychologists testified for the defense. Sophia showed signs of severe depression, post-traumatic stress from the Russian invasion, and anxiety from family separation. She lacked the mental capacity to fully understand her actions. The defense painted her as a victim, a child pushed beyond her breaking point. The prosecution laid out the timeline. 4 hours alone with her dying grandmother. No attempt to help, no remorse when questioned, no emotion at all. The evidence versus the explanation couldn't have been more different. The defense claimed Sophia was a traumatized child who snapped. The confession tapes showed someone who sat calmly beside her grandmother's body for hours. Remember the detail about Sophia's blank expression? The prosecution used it to prove she wasn't in a dissociative state. She was fully aware and indifferent. The judge reviewed testimony for 3 weeks. Expert witnesses on both sides presented conflicting evaluations. The defense showed Sophia's trauma history. The prosecution showed her calculated responses to the police. The courtroom waited for the decision. Finally, the judge ruled. Sophia Koval's case would be transferred to juvenile court. She would not be tried as an adult. The defense had won. But here's what the defense didn't expect. As part of that victory, Sophia received juvenile sanctions, mandatory psychiatric treatment, intensive counseling, and detention until she turned 18, possibly longer. The judge imposed strict requirements. Sophia would remain in a juvenile detention facility for a minimum of 3 years. She could not be released unless court-appointed psychologists deemed her safe for society. If she violated any condition of her detention or failed to show improvement, prosecutors could petition to try her as an adult retroactively.
Your attorneys would have the right to cross-examine the state's witnesses, examine the state's evidence, make arguments, motions, and objections on your behalf. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Do you understand that the state cannot call you as a witness because you have the right to remain silent?
Tak, sir. Yes, sir.
Do you understand that your attorney would have the right to call witnesses on your behalf, present a defense, and make an argument based on that defense?
Tak, sir. Yes, sir.
And if you wanted to participate and testify in the trial, you could do so. The state can't make you, but nobody can take that right away from you. Do you understand that?
Tak, sir. Yes, sir.
But you're giving up all these rights by taking a plea today because we would not have a trial. Is that what you want to do?
Tak, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, now we've talked about taking a plea today, but we haven't talked about what you're charged with or what you're pleading to. Do you understand what you're charged with?
Tak, sir. Yes, sir.
You are charged with 1 count of manslaughter. It is a second-degree felony. It is punishable by up to 15 years Florida State Prison. Do you understand that?
Tak, sir. Yes, sir.
According to the Criminal Punishment Code score sheet I have here in front of me, you score 111 months at the bottom of the guidelines. That's just under 10 years in prison at the bottom. Do you understand that?
Tak, sir. Yes, sir.
Your attorneys have negotiated on your behalf that you would be adjudicated guilty of this charge, then you would be sentenced to juvenile sanctions, where you would be committed to a maximum risk program, followed by a conditional release, not to terminate without a hearing. For how long? You have to have terms and conditions.
Till the age of 21.
And that would be in place until you turn 21. Do you understand that?
The mercy she'd been granted came with a clear deadline. If Sophia failed to show real progress or follow the strict rules of her rehabilitation, the safety net of juvenile court would vanish and adult prison would await. Every therapy session, every evaluation, every day in detention now carried the weight of her future. It was a second chance.
It would be determined by hearing. And Judge, I'm sorry, and a correction is she would be adjudicated delinquent, not guilty.
The program is up to 36 months, Your Honor.
Sorry, it's been a long time since I've seen juveniles.
Yes, sir. The length of stay is determined by the Department of Juvenile Justice and Ms. Koval's performance in the program. So they will then recommend when she would be released to Your Honor.
Ms. Koval, do you understand that? That you could be in this program for up to 3 years until juvenile justice determines that you have satisfied their requirements.
Yes, sir.
Followed by that, you would be on what's called conditional release. And you would be on that version of supervision until the court orders that you be removed from that or you turn 21. Do you understand that?
Tak, sir. Yes, sir.
Do you understand what the consequences of if you violate the terms and conditions of this agreement? Meaning if you got arrested for other crimes or you didn't follow the program's requirements. Do you understand what could happen to you?
Tak, sir. Yes, sir.
Do you understand that one of the consequences of that, if you were to violate in certain ways, that you could be resentenced as an adult?
Tak, sir. Yes, sir.
And if you are sentenced as an adult, the sentencing guidelines come back into play of 111 months at the bottom up to the 15 years Florida State Prison. Do you understand that?
Tak, sir. Yes, sir.
And you want to take this plea because you believe it's in your best interest?
Tak, sir. Yes, sir.
And you've had enough time to talk to your lawyers about this?
Tak, sir. Yes, sir.
And as we discussed previously, you want to give up your right to go to trial because you want to take this plea.
Tak, sir. Yes, sir.
Do you understand that by giving up the right to go to trial, you're also giving up the right to appeal anything that would have happened in the trial? So any sentence, judgment, ruling, mistake I may make, you're giving up the right to challenge to a higher court. Do you understand that?
Tak, sir. Yes, sir.
One more condition sealed her fate. Sophia would be closely monitored for 3 years after her release. Any violent behavior, any refusal to follow her treatment plan, and she would face adult sentencing for murder. Vladimir Koval appeared in court during sentencing. He read a short, heartfelt statement. He had lost his mother. He expressed hope that Sophia would use this second chance to truly understand the consequences of her actions.
Well, what I'm going to ask you to do I know in a lot of courtrooms and a lot of places, people feel the need to turn and talk to other people. Everything you say should be directed at me, towards me, and to me, not to anybody else in the courtroom. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm going to assume that's a picture of your mom?
Correct.
Okay. What would you like to tell me, sir?
First of all, I want to use this opportunity to give thanks to my family, my friends, community, who helped me in that difficult time to handle the murder of my mother by my daughter. It's a terrible, unexpected event. Broke our soul, our feeling. We lose the peace. We lost our relationship. And here today, to testify that hope that the judgment will give a chance to my daughter to assess, realize our mistake, and correct our future life. I appreciate the opportunity. And to begin, I would like to, in good memory for my mother, I would like to speak her character, what she was. My mother born in 1944 in France during the German occupation. And after war in 47, our family decided to move back to homeland, Ukraine. In Western Ukraine, where they start new life, it was a difficult time after war, disaster, starvation, and so on. So basically, she see all difficulty of this existence under Communist Party, under that dictatorship. Being so, she self-educated. She been teacher and educator in a kindergarten all her life till she retired. She loved kids, she loved people, she served community, church. She been involved in our family life.
He stepped out of the courtroom without looking back at Sophia. Sophia Koval is currently held in a Florida juvenile facility. Her eventual release will depend entirely on psychiatric evaluations, which must confirm she no longer poses a danger to herself or others. The case remains under strict state supervision. Should Sophia fail to meet the rehabilitation standards, prosecutors have the authority to refile first-degree murder charges in adult court. The belt marks on Yevhenia Koval's neck remain the central piece of evidence in the case. Alongside that, the autopsy photos, confession recordings, and other documentation are preserved, ready should Sophia's juvenile sentence be deemed insufficient. This tragic case continues to spark debate across Florida's legal community and within the Lauderdale Lakes neighborhood where Yevhenia died. Many ask, can a 14-year-old refugee scarred by war and family separation truly deserve a second chance? Or should the severity of her actions trigger adult-level consequences? The story leaves lingering questions about justice, rehabilitation, and the limits of forgiveness in situations where innocence and culpability collide. In the end, this case leaves us with a difficult question. When a child commits an unforgivable act, do we treat them as a victim of their past or as someone fully responsible for their choices? Sophia's future now depends on whether she can change and whether the system believes she can. Only time will reveal what becomes of her. If you want more stories like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a story that will make you think, question, and reflect.